Halftime show. Terry Ford hanging out with you. That's Ed Bird on harmonica right there, man. Sweet job by you, Ed Bird. As we roll this sucker till 3 here on the game. Obviously, a weird weekend for Spencer Rattler. Great weekend for the South Carolina baseball team. Good weekend for Marcellus Dial, Nick Gargiulo, who get drafted. Some undrafted free agents like Amarion Brown have inked up with teams. We'll get into all that stuff through the show, obviously. I'll take a bigger look at the NFL draft and just kind of yip about everything else. It's that weird time of year where, there's no football. Now there's no football from the NFL. You have rookie mini camps, and there'll be stuff from that. But the draft was the big thing. You do have mini camps, and then you have that downtime that every organization freaks out about because their guys are like, out on their own. They're not at the complex where they can watch them. They're out on their own where bad things can happen. And coaches flip out when their phones ring or GMs when their phones ring after like 11 o'clock at night. So the football calendar is going to get a little slow. I mean, there's always some type of mini camp news or something. And then things go through that downtime until you get to training camp. And, of course, college football transfer portal is about shut for college football. Then we'll wait. Then we'll have talking season, get to the SEC media days, and then it's off to summer camp and the start of the season. So because we're always football, obviously Gamecock baseball, we're going to get into that here in just a little bit. Very nice weekend against Kentucky. We talked about Friday. It's time to win these series. You've been close. You've been competitive. We talk about aggregate scores and if this would happen, if that would happen. Well, yeah. Now it's time to win a series. And with Gamecock's credit, they take 2 out of 3 from a top 5 squad in Kentucky at Founders. And we're going to obviously get into that. Got some Mark Kingston sound. Ton of stuff to get to there. But we put the focus on the NFL draft with South Carolina. We'll start there with the Spencer Rattler stuff. If it's true, and Ed Bird, let's play this in case someone hasn't heard it yet. Go to cut 17. Let me know when you're ready. Ian Rappaport was on the NFL Network. Obviously, Rappaport, the information guy for the NFL Network. And Ian Rappaport was talking about why Spencer Rattler was falling down draft boards. I thought Rattler would go in the 3rd round. Heck, we talked Friday with that run on quarterbacks in the 1st round. Maybe a quarterback-hungry team might snag Rattler in the 2nd round. But my thought was there's no way Rattler gets out of the 4th round. I was wrong, obviously. But Ian Rappaport had this to say about why Rattler hadn't been drafted yet as day 2 was going along. Hit it, Ed.
Rich, that is some of the issue. The ceiling for Spencer Rattler, teams really wondered, can this guy be a long-time or even short-time starter? Is he going to be a career backup? I want to go through some of the teams that did work and visited with him who might have a needed backup quarterback. Texans, Seahawks, Colts, of course, have Flacco. Giants did not end up taking the quarterback. The Raiders, of course, did not. The Packers as well. But I want to mention something in addition to this. And this is kind of weird to say, honestly. Spencer Rattler did a reality show in high school. It's called QB1 Beyond the Lights. It did not make him look great. And it is unbelievable how many different teams mentioned to me the image of him in that show and how they can't get it out of their heads, which I think would be a public service announcement to all 17-year-olds. But it is fascinating as teams weigh whether or not to draft him.
I feel like that's a load of fertilizer. Not Ian Rappaport. I think Ian Rappaport is reporting what he's being told by teams, unnamed sources. And Rappaport obviously knows a ton of people in the NFL. The draft is like such a big deal. And you have people hired who are making a lot of money and a lot of budgets being spent by NFL teams to watch all the tape and to do interviews and do due diligence and leave no stone unturned on all these guys, right? It's a lot of dudes. I get it. But you're going to tell me that there are teams in the NFL who with a straight face can look and say, I just can't get that QB1 documentary out of my head with Spencer Rattler. He was a teenager. Really? He was a teenager. Let's all do a documentary of us at 16 and 17. How much fun would that be? I couldn't get a job anywhere. Matter of fact, I would still be in juvie hall, and I'm a grown up. I'd have been in a work camp somewhere. So I have a hard time believing that the NFL, which puts so much importance on finding cheap, controllable talent on rookie contracts, would not want to draft a guy based on a documentary he did when he was a teenager. Smell that? That just smells weird to me. If that is true, and people just aren't saying that to Ian Rappaport or other information guys, man, that's bleeping lazy. And it's silly and it's asinine and it's ridiculous. Because, again, if me, with my low intellect, can sit here and say, wow, you're really going to judge a dude in his 20s on what he did when he was 17? The smart people in the NFL wouldn't do that. Right? It's just very weird. It just is. And again, that could be it. There could be something else we'll never hear. I don't know. It's just really strange to me that people whose livelihood, who get paid pretty good money to scout players, would hold a documentary that is, 5, 6 years old against a dude they're evaluating for the NFL draft. But it's okay to draft Lawrence Phillips in the first round. He decided to clean the stairs of his apartment building in Lincoln, Nebraska, with his girlfriend's face. That's okay. Jeffrey Simmons was drafted by the Titans. What was that, second round? After the video came out of him basically beating the heck out of some girl in a parking lot or dragging her around by the hair, assaulting a girl. Draft him in the second round. But Spencer Rattler had a documentary 6 years ago where he looked like an egomaniac, and he's going to fall down draft boards for that. You can assault people. You can commit felonies. We'll still draft you in the first couple rounds. But, hey, don't look like a teenage egomaniac. That's going to put you down the draft board. That just does not compute to me. So if that is the true case, that the NFL was evaluating Spencer Rattler with that documentary, that is beyond ridiculous to me. It just is. Now, if you want to say, hey, Rattler, he takes too many sacks, or he's got his pocket presence has to improve. He has great arm talent, but his decision-making sometimes makes us cautious and nervous to draft him. We don't like his headband. I mean, whatever. If you want to talk about that stuff, that's fine. I still think that's a third or fourth round quarterback with the arm talent that Rattler has, and the fact that he did improve from year 1 to year 2 at South Carolina. He took the coaching from Dow Loggins. He cut out some of the things in his game we saw that were a problem in year 1. He's very coachable. He was team captain both years, voted on by his peers. We saw him here. He was on Garnet Trust multiple times with Wes and Chris and Tyler. He was great. We had him in here, cutting commercials for NIL, Garnet Trust. He was great. Saw him with people who recognized him and talked to him. He was great. Everything we heard from the football complex was great. Nothing about the 17-year-old kid in the documentary. So something doesn't jive is what I'm saying. And I don't know what that something is. But what's that old saying? It's not where you start, it's where you finish. Spencer Rattler has a ton of arm talent, was coachable here at South Carolina. To me, was mature, handled his business, was a leader. Some of the other things that we talk about that are legit, does he have to get better decision making? Yeah, he got better from year 1 to year 2 here, but he still has to get better. And, he has to take less sacks. Maybe not, maybe not hold the ball, looking for a better play down the field. Just check down, live for the next play. And yeah, maybe pocket presence, has to get better. So those things that are real things on a football field, I get it. But this other stuff is just nonsense. And so hopefully Spencer Rattler goes to New Orleans. The Peterman's there. Kellen Mond's there. Jake Hayner's there from last year from Fresno State. Derek Carr is in his 30s. Had a solid year last season. But, I think this is the last year with that contract. I think the contract becomes team-friendly after this year. So Carr will start. Spencer Rattler hopefully can sit, develop, listen, learn, evolve. And when it's time for him to get his shot, hopefully it works. Because I'll tell you what, I was rooting for him before just because of, our interactions with him. And he came off as just really a good dude. Now I'm really rooting for him after draft day. And again, maybe it's as simple as that. I just feel like none of that makes any sense. So we'll see. But Spencer Rattler drafted in the 5th round by the Saints. Oh, and Chris Olave got a major target. Chris Olave's a really nice wide receiver. And, some other pieces are there. Taysom Hill's an interesting weapon. So we'll see what happens with Spencer Rattler, but did get drafted in the 5th round by the New Orleans Saints, and good luck to Spencer Rattler. I hoped it was going to work before the draft, and now I really hope it works for him. I really do. We'll talk about some of the other guys who went. Obviously, we spent a lot of time on Xavier Legette on Friday. Happy for him, and we'll talk more about Legette and the other guys, where they got drafted, who they went to, some of the other undrafted free agents that did sign or have offers. We'll get into all that stuff and get you caught up in case you haven't had a chance to put an eyeball on it. But next up, let's shift gears, talk about a very nice weekend for the Gamecocks on the diamond at Founders, taking 2 out of 3 from Kentucky. Some real positives from that series we'll get into. That's coming up next. Do not forget, there was not a Grand Slam. $1,075 in the pot. Go to 1075thegame.com to register for the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. You just look at the little flippy thing on the website. You click on the Grand Slam giveaway. You fill out the form. You click submit. You're in. You've registered. And when a Gamecock hits a Grand Slam, the following weekday morning at 7:30, we will pick a winner on the early game. And if it's you, you will be putting 4 figures in your pocket. It is the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. Again, go to 1075thegame.com to register. Who knows? You might win yourself some serious dough. We'll get back in here, talk some Gamecock baseball. Thumbs up weekend for South Carolina against Kentucky. We'll yip about it next. Here's some Mark Kingston sound next. It's halftime show. Terry Ford, Ed Birds here, punching buttons up until 3 on the game.
1-0, hit in the air to left field. Backing up on it as well, Schmidt. He's at the wall. He leaps. It's out of here. It's out of here. It's a home run, and the Gamecocks have won the game. South Carolina has won the game on a 2-run homer from Blake Jackson. I wasn't sure anyone but myself saw the third base umpire signal home run. Blake Jackson finally crosses home plate, and Carolina has walked off Kentucky in the 10th inning, 6-5.
Man, that was something. There's Derek Scott on the call, along with Stuart Lake. Blake Jackson's game-winning 2-run homer on Friday, which was huge for many reasons. Yes, it won the game. Duh, Tara. Yes, it was huge for that reason, obviously. But you got the momentum of a W in the first game of the series. And now, obviously, you just got to split the next two, and you're all right. Especially in the idea you had a 1-1 game. Kentucky took the lead, up 4-1. You came back and tied it at 4. Kentucky took the lead in the top of the 10th, 5-4. And then Blake Jackson goes yard to get the win. But also think about the 9th inning. How wild was that? Jackson, Reeves, Casas going yard. That was just a crazy game. A crazy game. So that was a ginormous win. But then you lose a tough one, another crazy high-scoring affair on Saturday. Then you bounce back with a run rule on Sunday, and you take 2 out of 3. Dylan Eskew was nails on Sunday. Another good start, going 6 innings for South Carolina, 6 shutout innings. Let's get cut 6, Ed Bird. Here is Coach Mark Kingston talking about Eskew's performance on Sunday.
Well, after the 15-13 game last night, what you saw today were 2 very heavy sinker ball pitchers, and the first 5 half innings going to the bottom of the third, I mean, nobody could get the ball off the ground, and so you saw a lot of ground ball outs, you saw a lot of quick outs, and that's what Dylan is. Their guy, really good guy. I think he was 7-0 coming in today, and he heavy sink, and Dylan was the same way, and Dylan was just a little bit better today over the course of the game. So he threw strikes today. He only had 1 walk in 6+ innings. So when he does that with the movement on his fastball, you got a guy that can do what he just did against a top 5 team in the country.
Yeah, the guy pitching against SQ was Mason Moore, who, I mean, just go by 1-loss record, was 7-0 coming into this game. And Gamecocks got to Moore in the 5th inning, blew it wide open, and SQ was really good. 6 1/3, like I said. 6 1/3 shutout ball. Only 5 hits, a walk. So basically the whip was right at 1. And South Carolina blew the sucker open and got the win. And then you walk away with 2 out of 3. But the key, SQ just kept throwing zeros. And again, he wasn't overpowering people and striking out 10 or 11 guys. But, he was locating, keeping the Kentucky hitters off balance, off rhythm. And Wildcats couldn't hit him. All right, here's Mark Kingston also talking about other aspects of that Sunday win. Cut 4 there, Ed Bird.
Yeah, praise Jesus on that one. I'll start out like that. Obviously, to respond like that after a tough loss last night, a loss that could have gone either way, I just thought this was probably one of our best weekends of the year, clearly. Offensively, clearly one of our best weekends of the year. So really proud. Want to start with Dylan SQ. Tremendous outing. Tremendous. When we needed it, gave us everything we could have hoped for. So 6 1/3 shutout, and then Connor McCurry came in there with that power stuff. Just everything we hoped we would see today.
Yeah, I mean, coming off that Saturday game was nuts too. It was just a kooky Friday, Saturday were like nuts. With the 6-5 come from behind win, then, being down 12-6 and losing 15-13. You had runners on base in the 9th inning. You just couldn't get one last hit. But that one was wild. Then you get the 10 run. on Sunday to win the series. And we were talking about getting over the hump, finally kicking the door in. Well, here's Mark Kingston talking about finally getting over the hump. Cut 10 there, Ed Bird.
Oh, it was great to see. Look, that's a top 5 team we played, and it seems like that's all we've played for the last 6 weeks is top 5 teams. They talk about quad 1 wins. That's something that people talk about all the time, but that's 25 teams. You could play 21, 22, 23, 24 and get full credit for quad 1 wins. We're playing number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. So our quad 1 wins in overall games, I think we're up to 23 or 24 now, is as high as just about anybody in the country. So to win this game, and we've been talking about getting over that last hump. We've been going toe-to-toe with Arkansas and A&M and all these teams, but to have the number 4 team come in, that was 15-3 in our league before the weekend, to come in and go 2-1 versus them, and really last night could have gone either way too. I think that's something that will really give our guys some confidence that we really know now, not only can we go toe-to-toe with anybody, we can beat anybody, and I think that will be important.
Well, that's the other part of this, too. I mean, yeah, you swept Vandy earlier in the year, but you've been losing series. Even though you were close, you were losing series. When it came down to those big moments in games, you just weren't making, we talked about it last week, you weren't getting the big hit. You weren't making the big pitch. You weren't getting the big defensive play. It just, in those big moments in games where that sucker's teetering, right? You weren't getting the plays that had to be made to win the games. You made the plays, whether it's tying the game with 3 home runs in the 9th or a home run to win it in the 10th on Friday. Sunday, the 10-run rule, where you got really good starting pitching from Dylan Eskew. Then your offense got cooking in the 5th inning. No matter what it was, you made plays. Even the 15-13 loss, yeah, you gave 15 runs, but you were down 12-6 and grinded that sucker back to where it got really uncomfortable for Kentucky in the bottom of the 9th. Just a good weekend. Pitching-wise, besides, Eli Jones and Matthew Becker, for the most part, your pitchers, whether starters or guys come out of the pen, at least were decent, solid, held their own. The Roman Kimball-Ty Good combination seems to be working. Eli Jones had a rough outing, but, Eli Jones has shown a history of bouncing back. And Dylan Eskew now, even though it's probably going to be TBA on Sundays, TBA equals Dylan Eskew, the way he's been throwing. Offensively, you really got cooking. And we're going to hear some more from Mark Kingston about the offense here in just a little bit. Because they were like, you know what? Let's move LeCroy to short, put Casas at third, Petrie at first. Yeah, we might be sacrificing a little defense, but we gotta jack up this offense. And it worked because the offense was a good weekend of offense. Much more aggressive earlier in counts, especially with men on base. They were hunting pitches, and when they found them, when they hunted them, they got them. It was just a good weekend all the way around, offensively. And like I said, pitching-wise, besides Jones and Becker on Saturday, the pitching staff as a whole did a really nice job, at least being solid, decent, productive to really good. All right, like I said, we'll get more into the baseball, what's trending at 2. We will come back. They'll get you caught up. If you don't know where some of these Gamecocks went, Gamecock football players, late in the draft or as unsigned rookie free agents, we'll get you caught up there. Halftime show, Terry Ford's here, Ed Bird's here. We're going to be rolling this baby up until 3 here on The Game.
the 150th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Spencer Rattler, quarterback, South Carolina.
And with that, the longest wait between quarterback picks in the history of the NFL and the common draft era comes to an end. 137 picks between Bo Nix and Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, there's Rattler being announced, and there's Reese Davis with that little fun fact that was the longest stretch between picks for quarterbacks in the common draft era. And we talked about Spencer Rattler in the opening riff of the show, and we'll circle back to more Rattler in the 1 o'clock hour. We'll play you the ESPN folks, their analysis of Spencer Rattler. So we'll get that going in the 1 o'clock hour. Also, Spencer with a message to Gamecock fans. So we got that coming up here in just a little bit. All right, other South Carolina Gamecocks drafted besides Xavier Legette and Spencer Rattler. Marcellus Dial went in the 6th round, 180th overall to the New England Patriots. The Patriots didn't have a need at DB, but at that point in the draft, you look at Marcellus Dial, and if you're the Patriots, you're like, look, he's got this is a strength, this is strength, this is strength. These things we're going to work on. He's going to play special teams. We'll draft Dial in the 6th round. Nick Gargiulo went, I think he was, 3 higher than Mr. Irrelevant in the 7th round, 255th pick overall, the Denver Broncos in the 7th round. And Gargiulo, versatility is a thing here. He can play guard, he can play center, better pass protector than run blocker. But again, he's a guy, it looks like, would be just a nice swing offensive lineman who can play multiple positions for you on the O-line. So Nick Gargiulo does go in the 7th round. Marcellus Dial in the 6th round. Then you had, of course, Spencer Rattler, Xavier Legette. Amarion Brown has signed a rookie free agent deal with the Cleveland Browns. And, Amarion Brown talked about it. We played the cut, what was it, Friday, I think, where Brown was discussing, now that, they're trying to bring the kick return back to the game, kick returners will have value again. And guess what? I'm a kick returner. So Amarion Brown, if he can flash, could hang out as a return man, possibly. Again, 5'8", 170, that's a tough go, but, there have been guys that size who can return kicks, so we'll see what happens with Amarion Brown. Trey Knox signed a rookie, undrafted rookie free agent deal with the Minnesota Vikings. Knox is an interesting guy, big, athletic for his size, will play special teams. Just got to see what happens. He's an interesting player. I was hoping the Gamecocks would use him more down the field. To me, he was a mismatch. He was a mismatch issue for linebackers. If you get Knox on a linebacker in the seam, like 20 yards downfield, I thought that would have been nice. But Knox will sign a rookie free agent deal with the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, they have T.J. Hawkinson, Nick Muse, former Gamecock, also in Minnesota, was in Minnesota. So we'll see where that goes for Trey Knox. A very interesting signing. Also, Tyreek Johnson signs with the Jets, free agent rookie deal. Johnson's a classic tweener. Not explosive enough to be an edge guy, not big enough to be an interior guy. But who knows if he bulks up or he finds the right team with the right defensive scheme and system that could fit his skills. Johnson could stick in the NFL for a bit or longer. Who knows? Jordan Strong has been invited by the Tennessee Titans and the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll see how that goes for Jordan Strong. Obviously, injury issues have slowed Jordan down over the last couple years. But Strong was invited to minicamp by the Titans and the Chiefs. To carry on, Joyner invited by the Seahawks and Saints. Joyner's interesting because he can do so many things. And this is where maybe Joyner, he benefits from not being drafted because his agent can take a look and say, okay, this is a really good landing spot for you because your skill set fits what they need, and we'll see where that goes. But Joyner has obviously played quarterback. He's played running back. He's played wide receiver. He's been a special teams dude for a while. He can do a lot of different things for you. And that might get to Kerryon Joyner on a final 53-man because of that skill set. So that's where everybody's at. Joyner invited to camp by the Seahawks and the Saints. Strong invited to camp by the Titans and the Chiefs. Tyreek Johnson signing with the Jets. Trey Knox signing with the Vikings. Marion Brown with the Browns. Nick Gargiulo, 7th-round pick by the Broncos. Marcellus Dallas, 6th round to New England. Spencer Rattler, 5th round to New Orleans. Xavier Legette, 1st-round pick to the Carolina Panthers. Out of them all, I feel like, I think Rattler will get an opportunity at some point in New Orleans. Now, again, Dennis Allen, the head coach, he kind of on a hot seat. And I'm not a huge, woohoo, big fan of Dennis Allen, the head coach. They didn't do anything with the Raiders, but then again, to be fair, who does? Consistently. Every now and then somebody pops with a decent year, but it never sustains because, they have Lloyd Christmas as the owner. But Rattler, I think, is going to get his opportunity. That's not a quarterback room. You go, wow, you'll get no chance to go with the pecking order there, Spencer. And Derek Carr, like I said earlier, I believe it's his last year where the contract, after this year, the contract will become team-friendly. And they can move on from Derek Carr if they wanted to, and it wouldn't crush them with cap or dead money. I'm going to double-check, but I believe that's what I saw when I looked at this over the weekend. Nick Gargiulo, I think, has a chance to stick in the NFL just because he can play multiple positions on the offensive line. I mean, if you can find an offensive lineman that can, play center, play both guard spots, I don't know, maybe even swing out the tackle if you really needed someone to do it, that's a value. So I can see Nick Gargiulo hanging. Maybe learn how to long snap. What the heck? Long snap be a great gig, man. You get in there, you just, you hunker down, you get the ball, you look, you find the kicker or punter or the holder or the punter, snap it to him. Life's good. And you make a good 6-figure living. It's not a bad gig. Not a bad gig at all. And you can do it for a long time. It's even better. So we'll see where it all goes for each of these guys. And obviously, Legette is looked at to be the guy in Carolina at some point in the wide receiver room. You don't draft a wide receiver in the first round for him to be a role player. The hope is Legette will be the starter at wide receiver as soon as humanly possible and give Bryce Young a true weapon because Bryce Young needs it. For as much as we give the Houston Texans all these props and love for how they set up C.J. Stroud and how much we give Chicago for the props how they're trying to set up Caleb Williams after they did nothing for Justin Fields. What would Carolina do for Bryce Young? Got him Adam Thielen. 33-year-old version. Not the 23-year-old version of Adam Thielen. That would have been great. The 33-year-old version still got open and caught the ball and you threw it to him. But he's 33 years old. He's not a go-to guy at this point in his career. He's a nice piece, but he shouldn't ever be your number one option at this point. Offensive line regressed. There was no running game, no weapons at wide receiver besides Thielen. It was a mess. The head coach, rumor was, didn't want him. The offense wasn't catered to young skills. It was a disaster. And now you see your owner showing up at, sports bars, knocking people's hats off. Man, if you're Bryce Young, you need something. Here comes something, Xavier Legette. But Legette is, the expectation is, no one obviously is close to the expectation from this Gamecock draft class that is Xavier Legette. All right, the craft beer card is back here at the game. Listen, this is cool. $30 a brewery, 12 craft beer locations. That's $360. That's what it says here on the paper. See it right here. It says on the paper. $360 value. You can get it for only $79. All you got to do is go to 1075thegame.com, click on Sweet Deals, get yourself a craft beer card. All right, we'll jump back in. Firehouse Sub Text the Hour coming up. Also, we'll continue to look at just a fine baseball weekend for South Carolina as they took 2 out of 3 from Kentucky. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Ed Bird is here, and we're rolling till 3 on the game. Time for our Firehouse Sub text of the hour, 803-404-6100. Jeff hits us up. Hey, we're talking about Spencer Rattler in the opening riff of the show. And I just have a hard time believing that the NFL is still judging Spencer Rattler, at least in part, by a documentary that he did when he was 17 years old. I find that hard to believe. I guess my idea is maybe I've overshot thinking about how smart the NFL is. I just think you'd be smarter and understanding that who you are at 17 is not who you are when you're in your 20s. I don't know. Call me nuts. Jeff sends a text. Firehouse subtext. All right, Terry, you're forgetting this is 2024 in America. You're only judged by what you say. Your actions don't mean anything any longer as long as you say the right things. Yeah, you're not wrong, Jeff. You're not wrong. That's just who we are, right? It's true. We're in a 24-hour news cycle world. We all have attention deficit disorder. We have all these ways now we can just lash out and say whatever we think. Right or wrong doesn't matter. Actions don't matter. It's words. Words matter more than actions, which is scary. Really is. It really is. And you're not wrong. This is what we do today. We care about now, right? How many times does something happen, everybody lashes out, then you find out the person you're lashing out about, whatever it is, oh, you're wrong. How many people then go back and say, hey, man, really sorry. My bad. Very few. We just move on to the next thing to be outraged by or to, be critical about or have our opinion about. We leave that one. We're done. We're done with that one. But you were wrong. Who cares? I'm on to the next one to scream about. I don't have time to go back and, apologize or say I was wrong. I don't have time for that. But Spencer Rattler, if this thing is right, I really have a hard time believing that this is why Rattler fell to the fifth round. But if this is in part why, because scouts and front office folks in the NFL couldn't get the documentary QB1 out of their head, that is beyond ridiculous and lazy. But Jeff, you're not wrong. The world we live in, it's words. And the other thing is, we also do, at times, dig back into people's teen years to use stuff against them, which I also find interesting. And again, everything's case by case, and life is fluid. And yeah, some things you go back and find, you go, wow, I don't care what age you are. That's crazy. But some things it's like, wow, you know what? That was a 16-year-old on social media. That person's now in their mid-20s. And it doesn't seem like they're that person at all anymore. But we go find things, we all get outraged because that's kind of, we're always trying to find something. So, Jeff, good text. And unfortunately, you're right. I wish you weren't. I really wish you weren't, man. By the way, and we'll do one again next hour, our Firehouse subtext, the hour at 803-404-6100. Just saw this. If you haven't heard this yet either, Phil Simms, Boomer Esiason out on the CBS NFL pregame show on Sundays. J.J. Watt, Matt Ryan are in. It's basically some new blood. Bill Cowher's still there. Also, James Brown is still there as well. So is Nate Burleson. They add J.J. Watt and Matt Ryan to the crew. See if they can spruce up the old pregame show on CBS, which has never been as good as Fox's. Back when I was really into the pregame shows, I always watched Fox with Bradshaw and Howie and just that whole crew. That was my favorite. Now, I have the ESPN one on because it comes on before the others, and I just don't change the channel because that would take effort. So I turn the ESPN one on. It comes on, 15 hours before kickoff or whatever. I just leave it on. Not that I love it any more than Fox or hate it or whatever. It's just on. But you can get so much information now just going on your phone or device or laptop that it feels like the pregame shows aren't as relevant as they used to be. But back in the day, I loved Fox's pregame show. I thought it was awesome. Plus, the Fox one focuses on the NFC. The CBS one will focus on the AFC. The why I have the ESPN pregame on because it focuses on all the games and gives me a little something on everything. But the pregame show, I mean, I used to have to watch them when I was younger. I had to be out of bed and ready to roll and watch the and flip on the Fox pregame show. But CBS trying to do something to their stale pregame show is gone with J.J. Watt, Matt Ryan, Nate Burleson, James Brown as the driver, and Bill Cowher is like the only one to survive. So, yeah, I just saw that. So if you missed it, that's the spiel for CBS. All right, football, the 1 o'clock hour is coming up. And we will, Spencer Rattler had a nice little thank you to Gamecock fans we're going to play in case you missed it. Also, we'll give you ESPN, their draft folks, with their thoughts on Spencer Rattler. That's coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. As, again, Rattler obviously going in the 5th round of the New Orleans Saints. And by the way, the 2025 way too early mock drafts are coming out. It's like, really? We just did this thing, really? We're going to start already? But we might have a little fun with that, too. But the draft, Tyler and I were talking about this Friday. It's one of those things, it's, as a sports dork, and I love the draft. I do. I'm a wacko for the draft. I think it would be cool my first thought, man, it'd be cool to go to the draft. But as you watch it and you see that there's only a small group of people who are like right there by the podium, and then it's just a bunch of people standing around, like eating and drinking and just kind of wandering with big TVs and stuff. I think I like it better at my house where I can pause it to go to the bathroom or eat my own food. And it's not overpriced. And I don't want to use a porta potty ever in my life. I've gotten there, Ed Bird. When I was younger, I didn't care, right? You'd use a sink. You didn't care. Now I gotten older, I don't want a porta potty. I'll just use my bathroom. Stay home, watch the draft. Getting old. All right, football. Coming up next in the 1 o'clock hour on the game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, glad you could be hanging. We got Ed Barrett here punching buttons and making sure we stay on the air and we don't do anything to get fined by the FCC and all that good stuff as we roll up until 3 o'clock here on the game. Jay's back, Elijah's back, and they'll be together doing the post-game show from 3 to 6. Obviously, our big focus, two things today. One, Spencer Rattler going in the 5th round of the New Orleans Saints, and also Gamecock baseball taking 2 out of 3 over Kentucky. But since we're doing football in the 1 o'clock hour, we'll circle back to Spencer Rattler. Here is the folks doing the mock draft on day 3, discussing Spencer Rattler after he was selected by the Saints. That's cut 16. Ed Bird, go for it.
Wow, Reese, what a wait it was. But Spencer Rattler, who held the South Carolina career completion percentage record, now goes to a crowded Saints quarterback room behind Derek Carr. I got to tell you, I like this player. I think he's got good arm strength. He has good functional mobility. He's not going to blaze you with the 40 time. He's not going to run past you like Jaden Daniels. But both inside and outside of the pocket, I thought he was athletic enough. I thought the big problem with Spencer Rattler this past season was with a bad offensive line around him, he was way too likely to try to get it all back in one play. You can only score 7 points, 8 points on one drive. The pressure around him led to just kind of an average season this past year for this Gamecocks offense. He's been through a lot of adversity. He's got a ton of starting experience. This is actually one of my favorite picks so far on day 3.
I believe that was Field Yates from ESPN talking about Spencer Rattler. I listened to day 3 on my Sirius XM as I was driving. So I listened to Mike Tannenbaum and Jordan Reed, Ian Fitzsimmons, and I'm blanking. I think it was Chris. I've lost my mind. But anyway, that's what I was listening to driving. And I think that was Field Yates on the TV call when Rattler was drafted. Look, forget all this, QB1 documentary nonsense. But the thing about Rattler, and I think Field Yates brings up something, we've discussed this here so much with Rattler, especially when we're talking about the draft, is look, dude was running for his life all year. Did the intentional grounding situation against Texas A&M, obviously it's unacceptable. You can't have 3 of those in a game. You can't have 1 in a game. Forget 3. And then, there was times he tried to force and make a play down the field when South Carolina was behind late, ended up being a pick, like in the Florida game. Yeah, there were times he probably took off too quick out of the pocket. Sometimes he might have held the ball too long, trying to hunt a play down the field because, again, the Gamecocks were behind. Not to sit here and make excuses for any of the criticisms of Spencer Rattler, because there are legit criticisms, and there's a fair reason why I thought you'd see Rattler go in the 3rd round. But, there were some extenuating circumstances for Rattler this past season. And I thought he just got better in some key areas. I thought he, did cut down on the gunslinger hero throws. He only made those when South Carolina was desperate late in games. The only throw I think was the throw was the pick 6 in the Tennessee game at the end of the half. To me, that was the worst throw all year. The other throws were, I got to try to make something happen. We're down by a score. We got to get down the field. There's no time on the clock. We got no timeouts. I got to take a shot. And we're down by multiple scores. I got to take a chance. Maybe I can make a big play. But I just think there were some, not excuses, but there were circumstances for, some of these criticisms of Rattler. Some of it is in his control, but some was also beyond his control, or the other stuff was affecting his decision-making. So, I do. I think the Saints, look, I don't know what the Saints are going to be. Dennis Allen might not make it out of the year, or he might just, finish out the season and get fired, and you have a new regime that comes in and want to bring in their own dudes. I don't know. But if Spencer Rattler can sit and learn and grow and not be rushed onto the field, and if he does, again, you're a 5th-round pick, there's no guarantee you're going to get a shot with the team that drafted you. Who knows what happens, right? You just don't know. But if Rattler can just chill, learn, develop, and hopefully gets his opportunity to step in when that time comes, I'm very anxious to see how it goes. I really am, because there's arm talent there for days. Obviously, he's a guy that's been through it, right? He's been through it. He had the highs of highs and the lows of lows. He's been through the whole spiel. Nothing is going to come at Spencer Rattler that's going to make him go, oh, my God. Oh, wow. Oh, no. I don't think he's been through enough. I think he's grown both on the field and off the field. He still has growing to do on the field. But I think that was a good pick by the Saints, especially getting Rattler in the 5th round. Spencer Rattler also, let's go to this one here, Ed Bird. Go to cut 19. Here's Spencer Rattler thanking the Gamecock fans.
Gamecock Nation, I want to give a big shout out to you guys. What a great 2 years I had down there. Couldn't be more thankful for the fan base, coaches, players. First, I want to say thank you and much love to my teammates. Couldn't ask for better brothers down there. My coaches, Coach Beamer, Dow, and you guys helped me get to where I'm at today. So much love and the fan base. I mean, the culture, everything down there. Couldn't ask for more as a player. Those game day environments. Can't compare. You know, I'm going to miss my time down there, but much love to you guys, and always, go Cox.
I mean, and so by the way, that was very cool that he goes on social media and does a thank you to the Gamecock fans. Also, I was told, and I heard also Preston and Tyler talking about this during the early game, where Spencer was at, pretty nice little neighborhood. He was hanging in there. So it wasn't like an apartment he was sharing with 30 dudes with puke on the walls and all sorts of stuff. No, that was a nice area there. Old Spencer was at. But yeah, I mean, it was really just a good thing to do, to, say, hey, thanks a lot. Because, I mean, Spencer Rattler left Oklahoma in some way, shape, or form with baggage, right? He just did. The perception of him, what happened, being, losing your gig, all that negativity that swirled around him since that stupid bleeping documentary. Rattler had to repair himself on the field, off the field, the whole spiel. He came here, was accepted right away by this fan base. He embraced that acceptance, did nothing off the field that made you go, ooh. Didn't say anything off the field that made you go, ooh. And on the field, he grew as a player. And the Tennessee and Clemson games will be etched in Gamecock history. So it was a lot of ups and downs for 2 years for Spencer. But, it helped repair him to where he was drafted. I mean, leaving Oklahoma and heading into the portal, he was looked at as done. Bust, punchline. He's going to be that guy on the list of 5-star has-beens or whatever. And he went from that to getting himself back into the NFL draft conversation where he was picked. So, classy move by Rattler to say, hey, thanks a lot, Gamecock fans. And there were some good moments. I mean, again, it was wasn't smooth. There were some speed bumps in there. But there were also some really good moments Spencer Rattler gave this fan base. So, good deal. And now moving forward, hopefully Lenore Sellers gives this fan base even more good memories. And we'll see what Rattler does in the NFL. Again, like I said, I think that arm talent can play. I really do. And being 6 foot tall today isn't as big of a deal as it was 10, 15 years ago. It's just not. You can build an offense around a guy who's 6 foot tall who can sling it. No, Spencer's not going to beat Usain Bolt in the 40. No, he's not going to have more vertical than Anthony Edwards. No. But, like Field Yates said, he can escape enough to get himself out of harm's way, and he looks downfield to try to make a play most of the time. So, I mean, I just think there's something there, man. I just do. We'll see where it goes. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but good for Spencer Rattler. Drafted, and now he can move on and get ready to roll with his NFL career. Another guy that got drafted late. We're going to fire this up real quick, Ed Bird. Cut 18. Marcellus Dial. Here's the announcement of Dial ending up in New England.
I sure did, Reese. Like when the big board marries with how players actually go off the board in real life. Number 180 on the big board, 186 on the big board, goes 180th overall. Marcellus Styles got some serious man-to-man coverage skills. He had 3 interceptions in 2022. None last year, but he did have 10 pass breakups. Some of the strengths of his game, 4.46 speed, linear player, plays through the football at the catch point as well. You saw it right there on film. By the way, also very good trigger to work back towards the ball. A guy who began his college career, by the way, at the Georgia Military Academy for 2 years, ended up in South Carolina for 3 seasons. Over the past 3 years, started 29 games for that South Carolina Gamecock defense. Their first defensive pick, by the way. We are now into the 6th round of the NFL draft.
Yeah, Patriots didn't really take much defense at all because they were trying to rebuild the offensive side of the ball because that's a disaster in New England. Dial, depending on the system of defense you play in the scheme, will be the depending factors on how Marcellus Dial does in New England. Are they playing a system and scheme of defense that can fit Dial's strengths while he's working on his weaknesses? That's going to be a thing. Plus, Dial's going to play special teams, and if you're cool with playing special teams, you should be able to stick at least for a few seasons. But Marcellus Dial will get his opportunity in New England. But their depth and their talent is on the defensive side of the ball. So we'll see where it goes there. But Marcellus Dial, 6th round of the New England Patriots, as they start over with Gerard Mayo as the head coach and not Bill Belichick. It's got to be weird. If you're in New England, how weird is that? No hoodie walking around. Hadn't showered in 3-4 days. Covered in food from the week. Just watching film, grumbling, mumbling. We're on to Cincinnati. We're on to Cincinnati. It's got to be strange in New England. But Marcellus Dial going for it's a whole new thing in Foxborough. Good luck to him. Hopefully it all works out for him. All right, football in the 1 o'clock hour. Again, the draft is done. We'll take a spin back and look at it from a kind of like a bigger perspective than just South Carolina Gamecocks. We'll do that next. Some stuff that, first of all, I'll start with a team that I like what they did, and it's really a weird feeling to like what they did because they very rarely have done anything that anyone would like for a long time. That's coming up. Halftime show with Terry Ford, Ed Bird. We're hanging here till 3 on the game. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on The Game. We appreciate you if you're listening. 107.5 The Game in Columbia, 100.5 The Game in Florence, 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. Thanks a lot for hanging out with us here on The Game. Also, you watch Game TV, just go at The Game TV Radio. And, of course, powered by Integrated Media and sponsored by Shepherd's Glass. And also, always, you can go to our app, 107.5 The Game. You can get it iTunes, Google Play, and you can listen to us anywhere. All right, so when the NFL draft finished, this was weird because, again, I'm a draft goober. I love the draft. I read way too much about it. And one team, though, it really stuck out that they did so well, and it's so creepy to admit they did well. It almost makes you want to break out in hives. The Washington Commanders, God, it's such a dumb name. Washington Commanders had a good draft. It's like every time the card went up and they drafted somebody, I'm like, wow, whew, that was actually a good pick. I like Jaden Daniels there in the 2 spot. You know, Daniels has what he did last year at LSU was ridiculous. Yes, he had 2 first-round draft pick wide receivers helping him out, but still, Daniels, his numbers throwing the ball over the field were filthy. Deep, intermediate, short, just what a season. Obviously, you make plays with his legs. He still kind of bails quick out of the pocket to take off, but hopefully Washington, that coaching staff, I think Cliff Kingsbury's a bit overrated as an offensive guru, but I do think that if they can coach Daniels to hang in there and go through his progressions a little bit longer, then you really got something. But, Jaden Daniels, I like that pick. But like all the picks, it was crazy. Like Zerdan Newton, the defensive tackle from Illinois, getting that guy in the second round, I thought was a really good pick. Mike Sanderstall from Michigan, the corner. I know he's like 3 foot tall, but dude can play. And he's a leader. He's a captain. He's a great locker room guy. Ben Sennett, the tight end from Kansas State, was a really good pick. And I love the pick in the 3rd round, Luke McCaffrey. You're saying, I've heard that name before, Tara. Yes, Christian McCaffrey's brother started off as a quarterback in college, then moved to wide receiver at Rice because he really wasn't a good quarterback. And he's really picked up the wide receiver position. He's still very raw, but that's a guy. Remember that guy, Luke McCaffrey. You might end up hearing about him in a couple of years playing wide receiver at a high level. That was just a really good. Oh, by the way, his dad was really good at it. So the Washington draft, it was like they're taking guys. I'm going, this is so weird. Washington's doing things that make sense. But again, you got new ownership in Josh Harris, new GM Adam Peters, who learned in San Francisco where they're pretty good. And, Washington had draft capital. 1 first-round pick, 3 seconds, couple of thirds. That's 6 premium round choices. That's a good way to rebuild your roster. You get cheap talent on rookie contracts. And, of course, the key to the whole thing is Jaden Daniels, obviously. Now, look, quarterbacks don't deserve 1-loss records. That's stupid in the ultimate team sport. I talk about that all the time. You have a quarterback throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, but the defense gives up 6 touchdowns, and you want to give the quarterback a loss? That's silly. But a quarterback, because it is the most important position in team sports, can change your entire franchise. See Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. See C.J. Stroud with Houston. It happens. Do they do it all by themselves? No, but they're the trigger man for the turnaround. So if Jaden Daniels can play at a franchise quarterback level in a couple of years, that's when this thing really gets cooking. But this draft was really good. And it's so bizarre to give the Redskins love. Or, I'm sorry, the Commanders. I can't believe I slipped. Wow, it's been a while. So we'll see where Washington goes, but that was, to me, a really good draft. One team, look, we've talked about the Falcons, about the Michael Penix pick, and I've had people try to explain this to me by spinning it to where the Falcons don't look like, boobs. But I'm sorry, someone tried to use the Jordan Love comparison with the Packers. When the Packers drafted Jordan Love, even though they had a Hall of Fame dude already a quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. I said, well, that's not the same. The Packers were a perennial playoff team, had been in the NFC Championship game multiple times, were right on the doorstep, and they had a really good roster. And they drafted Jordan Love. They weren't a team trying to get over the hump and compete for a playoff spot or get to the playoffs. They weren't a team that, since they've been to the Super Bowl, has been constantly trying to get the formula right again. They're two totally different franchises in two totally different spots. I don't, that comparison doesn't work for me. Atlanta, they needed to do something else with the 9 pick to fortify that football team because it needs it. Not pick what you hope is your quarterback of the future who's not going to play for 2 more years. Maybe not 3 if you look at Kirk Cousins' contract. If the Atlanta Falcons, if they kick Cousins to the curb after 2 years, they got $25 million in dead money to deal with. If Cousins starts for 3 years and then gets shown the door, it'll be $12 million in dead money. I feel like Cousins starts for at least 2 years, maybe 3, as long as he's playing at a decently high level. And if it is 2 or 3 years, Penix isn't going to play till he's 26, 27 years old. And then after year 3, you got to make the decision: are you going to kick the rookie option year, the 5th-year option? You might only have 1 year of watching Michael Penix to make that decision. So no one can try to explain this away where it makes sense to me. It just doesn't. Another team that I don't know how much sense it makes is the Buffalo Bills. You don't reach for need in the draft. Listen to anyone who has been a successful GM who is, look, drafting is an exact science. We moved the numbers last week. Since to the year 2000, overall, for guys that were drafted who got second contracts with their team, there's only a 43% hit rate. So it's under 50% that the experts do getting it right. It's an inexact science, right? It just is. But, at some point you have to look at your draft board and figure out what you can do to help a position. Maybe you're sitting at a certain spot in the draft and there's no one there you love, but there's like the position you are zeroing in on in the draft. There are guys at that position maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 picks down later. Maybe you trade down, get some draft capital, then you draft the dude where the value makes sense. Buffalo Bills only added 1 wide receiver in this draft, Keon Coleman, who isn't very fast, but is a jump ball, catch radius, red zone maniac. They don't have many wide receivers in Buffalo. They lost Gabe Davis. Obviously, traded Stephon Diggs. It's, and they got this guy named Josh Allen. They've got this window that's closing on them right now. I thought, they might do something else through the 7 rounds to help fortify the wide receiver room. And they did draft one guy, Keon Coleman. And they traded out twice in the bottom of the first round, got some draft capital, and then got Coleman in the early second round. I just thought they might do a little bit more since, you're kind of in that spot where you're in win now mode in Buffalo. It's a weird purgatory the Bills are in. They had to shed salary cap. They had to add some draft capital, but they are in win now mode. So I thought maybe at some point a receiver would be high enough on their board to take a shot at it. Obviously not. They did get Keon Coleman. We'll see how that works. Because, again, dude can, he can go up and get it. He's just not the fastest guy in the world. How's he getting off the line of scrimmage? Is he going to be able to, get enough separation to get open? Because you can't just jump ball all day. He actually has to get open in other ways, too. So we'll see. But Keon Coleman was the only pick for the Bills. All right, we'll get back in here. The transfer portal in football for South Carolina. Speaking of wide receivers, we'll take a look at what our folks at Gamecock Central have on their transfer portal watch list as the transfer portal is about to shut in football. We'll get to that next. halftime show. Terry Ford, Ed Bird. We're just kind of hanging out here, yapping sports, and up until 3 on the game. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. You know, Ed Bird, we got baseball tickets to give away, according to our ticket guru, Dreamy Josh. So that's his name, by the way. If you see you ought to see his driver's license. He's got little glamour shots of his hair. If you're under the age of 40, you don't know what a glamour shot is, I don't think. But if you are, you're like, oh, God, those things were brutal. All right, so let's give away a pair of tickets. Caller number 6 gets a pair of tickets to the baseball game this Wednesday, South Carolina, East Tennessee State at Founders. Again, caller number 6 gets a pair of tickets to roll off and check out Gamecock baseball against East Tennessee State. That is 6:15 pregame, 6:30 first pitch. So, again, caller number 6, give us a holler at 803-404-6100. Get yourself a chance to go check out some Gamecock baseball. Again, caller number 6. All right, so South Carolina in the transfer portal, we've talked a ton about wide receivers. And really, Shane talked about wide receivers and offensive linemen from a numbers point of view. You want a certain amount of number of, players in a position group in the room. And Shane was like, we'd like to, maybe add a wide receiver and offensive lineman. A little short in those position groups. We've been focusing on wide receiver, and we've said this about 17,402 times. You can't take too much from a spring game. And, the wide receivers, I didn't think they were terrible at all, but they didn't, wow you with big, gigantic plays and, touchdowns and yards and all this other stuff. And it was a position that, again, you lose Juice Wells in the offseason. Xavier Leggett's a first-round pick. Amarian Brown eligibility is done. So you lost your top 3 wide receivers in some way, shape, or form. You added in the portal, but you still probably like to add a bigger body wide receiver or another playmaking wide receiver. Well, the 2 that are on the list as of a couple days ago, Vandrevis Jacobs from Florida State. Jacobs only caught 3 balls last year for 60 yards and a touchdown, kept his redshirt status as a freshman. 6 foot 175, not the big, gigantic catch radius dude we're talking about getting, but a guy that South Carolina, the coaching staff, think there's a lot of potential there to be a playmaker. And he's got 4 years of eligibility left. So keep that name in the back of your noggin, Vandrevis Jacobs. And the other one we've talked about before, Delvion Campbell from Nevada. Got more run last year, 31 catches, almost 600 yards, and a couple of touchdowns. Big dude, 6'4", 218. You threw it to him, he caught it. Average depth per route was, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, I looked at this earlier, between 17 and 19 yards per route. Not a ginormous yak guy, but a guy that can make some plays a bit down the field. Started his career at Illinois. He would have 1 year of eligibility left. So those are the 2 right now on the list. Jacobs is supposed to have his official visit to South Carolina early this week. Campbell taking his official visit beginning last Friday. So we'll see where all that lays itself out. Once you're in the portal, you don't have to sign right away. You got to be in the portal, though, as the portal is about to close. So that's the latest on the transfer portal news for Gamecock football. We have some portal news for Gamecock basketball we're going to get to top of the hour. That's pretty cool stuff. So that's what's going on wide receiver-wise in the portal for South Carolina. If you don't add one, is it the end of the world? Probably not. But it would be good to add another wide receiver. It would. A couple of transfer portal notes. Colorado, they just keep turning dudes in and out. You want to talk about revolving doors? Guys come in the portal. Guys go out through the portal. Running back Dylan Edwards is transferring to Kansas State. He was Colorado's leading rusher. He ran for 6 yards. Because remember, Colorado threw the ball almost every down. Seriously, Edwards ran for 321. Caught 36 passes for almost 300 yards. He's a guy that, he had his moments last year for Colorado when, the quarterback Sanders could actually throw the ball because he was too busy running for his life. But Edwards does hit the portal. And Deion talked also to the media, saying he's committed to the Buffs program. He's got work to do. He has no plans to follow his sons to the NFL. Look, I like Deion. I hope Deion's successful at Colorado. I said this last year. Remember, they started off really well early, and then because the offensive line was terrible and the defense, couldn't stop a nosebleed, from the words of the great Bart Scott. But I'd love to see Deion be successful. What he's doing is different. He's fun. Got a little something going on. It would be cool to see Deion be successful. But this whole idea that Deion's going to leave and go get an NFL head coaching job, again, not to be mean. If I'm a GM, Deion has really got to sell me in the interview to hire him to be an NFL head coach. What I've seen in college, he was very successful on a lower level. So far, you have seen a lot of glitz and a lot of style, but you need some substance. If Deion could stack a couple winning seasons in Boulder, which is not the easiest place to win anymore, then you're like, okay, wow, all righty. But, I mean, build up some resume. Again, some team wants to hire Deion to be their head coach in the NFL. Go get him. I hope it works for you. I just know if I'm in a GM chair, I need to see some success at Colorado, or Deion's got to come in and wow me with his idea of what he wants to do. Sell me his idea for being my head coach. Because, I mean, what you see is successful at Jackson State, a crazy first year in Boulder. I don't know if it's enough for me to go, yep, you're my guy to hire as my NFL head coach. Don't know if it's enough there. Also, Deion brought that thing up a little while ago about his sons really played for like 6 NFL teams or whatever. I started laughing. Yeah, okay. If one of the if some team is on your list of 6 drafts your kid, number 1 overall, you're gonna tell him not to go? Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. One other college football note is we do football in the 2 o'clock hour. This is really college athletics. More than 24 athletes who were based in Iowa filed a federal lawsuit last Friday alleging that state criminal investigators violated their constitutional rights by using geolocation software to track activity on their cell phones as part of a widespread sports wagering inquiry that resulted in criminal charges and loss of NCAA eligibility. Now, this is interesting. There was almost a 50-page lawsuit that was filed in U.S. District Court. It was basically, the lawsuit is stating the state's criminal investigators needed a search warrant before using a program from a third-party company called GeoComply to find athletes, including many who are under 21, under the legal betting age in Iowa, and conduct searches to examine their online wagering activity. Basically, they didn't use search warrants to go into their original, like, whereabouts. They used this geo-tracking, geolocation software to start their investigation, basically. And these athletes are saying that is not legal because they didn't use search warrants or anything of that nature to get the information. Quote, the lives of these young men have been disrupted and altered in a way that is still yet to be fully seen. It's our hope that through the civil actions, we can help these young men put their lives back on track. Now, this is separate from the NCAA saying, hey, you know the rules and regulations you signed up for with your letter of intent. You knew you couldn't gamble, especially on football games, college football games, so see you bye. Which I totally agree with. And saying I agree with the NCAA makes me feel dirty. But I do in this instance. Integrity of a game is a big deal. I don't care if the bet was 50 cents. I really don't. I'm not trying to be mean. You never want people to question the integrity of your sport. And everywhere people question the integrity of sports now. You don't want to get more ammo. You know, all the conspiracy theory people wearing their, aluminum foil helmets. They think everything's fixed. Everything's been written out by Vince McMahon. You don't want to give them more ammo. Man, it would stink if they were actually right. I don't believe they are, but what if they were? Your mind would blow. But you don't want to give any more ammo. You need to have your game above reproach. So the NCAA telling these dudes, you're done, I get it. Now, this whole thing about search and seizure and not using a search warrant to get information and using geo-tracking software, wow. That's a whole other ballgame. We'll see. And there are people that think these athletes could win this case. But we'll keep an eye on that. All right. We'll come back. Our Firehouse subtext the hour at 803-404-6100 as we continue on with football, and more football here on the Halftime Show right here on The Game. Time to hit our Firehouse Sub text of the hour. 803-404-6100. We were talking about, and we talked about it a bunch on Friday, and I just touched on it a little bit in this hour as we do football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Let's see, unnamed texter. Personally, I think the Atlanta Falcon pick of Michael Penix is being overhated. I love Kirk Cousins to death, but he's like 35 coming off of an injury. I don't see a problem in developing a guy that could become a star while being a backup and learning. Look what happened to Rodgers in Green Bay, Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. I get where you're going with those ideas. In theory, remember, though, those teams were already playoff/championship contending teams, and they had good rosters. So they could afford to take the players they took. Remember, Love was picked in the 20s. Mahomes was taken at number 10. I believe, wasn't he the third quarterback taken overall that year? I mean, Kansas City, they loved Mahomes, and they had a playoff roster. But Alex Smith was only going to be around for another year because his contract was becoming team-friendly, and they could move off of Alex Smith. So the circumstances are a little different in each case than Atlanta. Atlanta's not a playoff team. Hell, they can't spell playoff. They still have holes in that roster. And having a top 10 pick with holes in your roster and you just went and got a quarterback, I just don't think a top 10 pick right there should have been used on a quarterback. Much less a quarterback that, you might have been able to get later on in the first round. And if you don't get him, there could, you could still maybe figure that out and take another quarterback later. Quarterback wasn't something you had to address at that point is what I'm trying to say. And Michael Penix Jr., look, there are question marks on Michael Penix Jr. And it's like, it is legit stuff about, is he going to be able to maneuver and move around, against NFL pass rushes because of the injuries he's had to his knees? Is he going to be able to throw against pressure? What happens when you speed him up? And I just think that guy taking the top 10, I think, is a huge reach. But two, when you're a team trying to build a playoff roster and trying to get yourself back in the postseason, spending a pick on a guy that's not going to play most likely for 2 years at the earliest, to me, just it's not the best use of your draft capital in the top 10. That's just me. If you take that quarterback in the second round, I'll go, oh, okay. But using a top 10 pick like that, I'm just not down with it. I'm not like going crazy. I'm not a Falcon fan. I'm not like, oh my God, I hate this. These guys are, no, I don't agree with the pick. I don't think it was a good pick. That's all. But I'm not hating on him. I'm just giving my opinion that I think you should have. Either you take Dallas Turner right there, who does need some work as an edge, but still can, cause some havoc on quarterbacks, or you trade down. And somebody who's dying to go up and get a quarterback, you can get yourself some sweet draft capital, trade down, still get a guy in a position or area of need, or I shouldn't say need, value that you would need, and add some more draft picks. That would have been me. One of those two scenarios. But taking a quarterback there when you have so many other areas on the football team that you need to improve upon to get your butt back in the playoffs, I would have gone that direction instead of taking a quarterback who's going to sit around for a couple years. That's just me. We'll see where it goes. It might work out for the Falcons. And if it does, it's a great pick. So that's the fun part of this. If it works out, it's a great pick. Way to go, Atlanta. Way to go against the grain. Way to go outside the box. You showed them. If it doesn't work, we're going to, you sit around and you go, told you it was not a smart move. So we'll see. But it was a pick that, it was polarizing. But I thank you for the text. And I see where you're going. We just look at it different. That's all. We'll do one more Firehouse Subtext the hour in the 2 o'clock hour, 803-404-6100. Coming up, we are going to roll through what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. That is coming up. And we'll get you some, we'll talk about some South Carolina men's basketball transfer news, get back to the baseball conversation. Excellent weekend of Founders as South Carolina won 2 out of 3 over Kentucky. We'll get into all that. Get some more Mark Kingston sound as well, talking about his baseball team, which is sitting. Look, they're sitting in a good spot. Top 15 RPI team, just won 2 out of 3 over Kentucky. You know, the hosting is there. If they can just handle their business, don't fall back. Just handle your business. You'll end up hosting when you get to the postseason. So we got all that coming up. Also, again, $1,075. That's what you could win if we draw your name in the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. If a Gamecock hitter rips a Grand Slam, that next weekday we're on the air at 7:30 with Bill and Jen and Preston. They'll pick a winner. It could be you, but you got to go register at 1075thegame.com. You click on the Grand Slam giveaway. You fill out the little entry form. Takes about 12 seconds. And boom, you're qualified to maybe win $1,075 from Palmetto Citizens. Last hour of the halftime show coming up. Halftime show. Terry Ford hanging out with you for one more hour. Ed Bird's here. We're just telling old radio stories about things we could get away with and nobody. Tell you what, those surveillance cameras ruined radio, Ed Bird. That's all I'm saying. Especially the ones in the conference room. Anyway, we're just hanging out here till 3. What's trending at 2 to open up the 2 o'clock hour, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. If you go and get some merch from Gamecock Traditions, a portion of those proceeds will go to the Garnet Trust. You're helping build the NIL coffers for the University of South Carolina. Again, Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. All right, what's trending at 2? Let's swing on back to basketball, men's basketball. South Carolina, a good weekend. If you missed it, Nick Pringle, who played at Alabama last year. You saw Pringle had a really nice NCAA tournament for the Tide. Pringle, 6'10", will slip into the center spot for South Carolina, as he is now a Gamecock after announcing he will transfer here to Columbia. 6'10", 230. I mean, the numbers don't make you go, oh, my God. About 7 points and 5 boards a game, a little bit under a block. But Pringle really popped, like I said, in the NCAA tournament. Had some really good games. And he's an athletic guy for his size, more of a paint patroller, rim protector type. He averaged a little bit under a block a game, but still, he's a guy that will upgrade South Carolina in the paint. Like I said, very athletic, shot over like 60% from the field. He's not a stretch 4 type of guy like a B.J. Mack, but he has more of an offensive game than a Josh Gray. And really, it will be better at both ends of the court than Josh Gray. So that's a big get. Nick Pringle. That's nice. Of course, Jordan Butler has showed up. And he's a developmental big, a 7-footer. Now you got to get a point guard. That's next. South Carolina really close to getting Jameer Brickus from LaSalle, who I really was hoping that the Gamecocks would be able to, close the deal there. But Villanova, his hometown school, Brickus, a Philly guy, late push from Villanova, has kind of screwed that up for the Gamecocks. Don't know which way they will go now, but you got to get a point guard. Got to get a point guard. Too bad Talon Cooper doesn't have a year of eligibility left. That would be fantastic. Cooper was perfect. Pass first point guard, could make threes, especially big threes at money time. Excellent floor general. Leader on and off the court. Man, love to have another year of Talon Cooper. But you got to get a point guard. We saw it 2 years ago, and again, it was not the most talented crew 2 years ago. It was kind of, remember, Lamont had to put that thing together on the fly. A little clunky. But one of the biggest problems was you didn't have a floor general, didn't have a point guard. A guy that was going to run the offense, get dudes in the right position to make plays, get the ball to guys in spots where they could score. And then when it's time for him to get his, he could. That was missing 2 years ago, and you saw just how much it affects an offense not to have a true point guard. So hopefully South Carolina can get that done because you got the 5 spot figured out. And now you have Pringle and Colin Murray-Boyles. That's nice. Jacoby Wright's coming back. Miles Studi will be back. You obviously have Cam Scott in the fold. If you could get a point guard, next year feels pretty interesting. Really does. So that's the latest from the transfer portal for South Carolina men's basketball. And obviously we'll keep you up to date and keep our eyeball on all that. All right, moving on to baseball. Again, nice weekend. Winning 2 out of 3 over Kentucky. That crazy W Friday night. 3 homers in the 9th to tie it. Blake Jackson with the game winner in the 10th. Coming back from a 3-run deficit and then a 1-run deficit. Just all good. Saturday losing that crazy 15-13 game, and then coming back and run-ruling Kentucky on Sunday to win the series. Let's grab a couple cuts here, Ed Bird. Get your finger ready, my man. Here we go. We'll start off here. Coach Kingston, offensively, very interesting offensive lineup that, was productive. Yeah, left some guys on base. Yeah, they had a lot of guys on base, but they scored a ton of runs. So offensively, it might be the best lineup they've had, but defensively, it seemed like they were taking some chances by putting Talmadge LeCroy at short, Gavin Costas at third, Ethan Petrie at first. But here's Mark Kingston. Let's go with cut 5, Ed Bird. Here's Coach Kingston talking about defensive improvements. Again, there's cut 5.
I mentioned this in the pregame show today. Every team has the 9 they think is their best defense. Every team has what they think is the 9 that's their best offense, and you generally try to find the best mix of that. And sometimes you have to make a sacrifice. If you think you need more offense, you've got to sacrifice a little defensively and vice versa. We just felt like we needed to jumpstart the offense a little bit and put our best 9 hitters in there that would give us some length in that lineup. It's obviously paid off for us this weekend. And defensively, the good thing is our assistant coaches do such a great job doing homework on spray charts and trying to figure out where the balls are most likely to go. So when you do that, range you can mitigate, maybe a little bit less range because of that. So I think you just combine all those things, and it just felt like the right time to give that a shot, and it worked really well this weekend.
All right, that lineup, if you looked at the one on Sunday, Austin Brindling was leading off, playing center field. Ethan Petrie in the 2-hole at first base. Parker Noland batting third at second base. The catcher, Cole Messina, hitting cleanup. Blake Jackson in right field hitting fifth. Kennedy Jones, the left fielder, batting sixth. In the 7-hole was Dalton Reeves, the DH. Talmadge LeCroy at short, hitting eighth. Gavin Costas at third, batting ninth. Yeah, you had a little defensive stuff that kind of made you go, ooh, okay. But offensively, that is your best 9. Now, we'll see what happens. Will Tippett will be back here at some point soon, and we'll see where that goes. But that was here's the best 9 offensively we can put on the diamond. And it worked out really well. And let's talk about that. One of the things that did get better was hitting with runners on base. Over 300 in those situations over the 3-game series against Kentucky. Cut 11, Ed Bird. Here's Mark Kingston talking about the improved hitting with runners on base. Again, cut 11, my friend.
Yeah, we just waved that magic wand today. That's all it took. I think, again, it's not a coincidence that we made the commitment to maybe add a few more bats to the lineup. And with the thought that what will it do to our defense? You added a few more veteran bats with a lot of at-bats under their belts that just kind of help it keep going and take it a little bit better at bats. And I just think at the end of the day, how you drive in runs is you have short, efficient swings. You make good swing decisions. You swing at the right pitches, and you try to stay relaxed in the moment, and you stay under control. And when we do that, we can score 10 runs. We can score 13 runs like we did the last 2 days. But the game's not easy. I think sometimes it's easy to think these kids should just hit 400 all the time. The game's hard, and our league is the hardest league in America, and our guys have been battling all year, and I'm hoping that we are now kind of hitting our groove.
Yeah, it's been like that all year with the problems with runners in scoring position, runners on base, teams leading a lot of, ducks on the pond, so to speak. And what you hope for is that at some point the law of averages goes your way, right? At some point, you're going to get some knocks with men on base because it just the strike zone. This team has got a lot of they walk a lot. They also strike out a lot because they work counts deep. So that's the good and the bad of working deep counts. Is you're going to walk, but you're also going to strike out because you're getting yourself in these 2-strike deals. But the thing that it feels like they did better is they're a little bit more aggressive earlier in the count. They were hunting their pitch, because that's the term in baseball today, hunt your pitch. And when you get it, barrel it. And we saw a lot more of that this weekend. Hunting their pitch, getting aggressive early in the count. And when they did get the pitch they were hunting, they didn't miss it. Because sometimes you can do all that stuff right and just miss the pitch, or the pitcher beats you. But the hitters were winning a lot this weekend against Kentucky, so that was good stuff. All right, let's get another one here, Ed Bird. Cut 7, lineup consistency through the weekend, because, South Carolina has been searching for the right lineup combinations offensively and defensively at times, and also that, searching for the consistency and setting up the pitching staff for the weekend. So here's Coach Kingston talking about lineup consistency through the 3-game series with Kentucky.
Well, I would say it'd be hard to argue that right now, right? And you still have a Will Tippett who's working to get back, but it's hard to argue with the offensive production we got this weekend. And it just felt like, okay, even as you get to the bottom of the lineup, some really good things can happen. And Cassis hit in the 9-hole today and was 2 for 4 with a run and an RBI. Took some good at bats and made all the plays defensively that I can remember. You want to have your best team when it matters the most, when the games decide who stays and who goes home. And so we'll continue to look at everything that we think might get us a little bit better and then evaluate as we go.
Yeah, you had Gavin Costas batting 9th. We just went over the lineup. Talmadge Lecroy at shortstop hitting 8th. And, Mark in the postgame after the win on Sunday talked about Lecroy at short. And, Coach Kingston said, typically I like a quicker, faster guy playing short because they cover more ground, have more range. I get it, but, Lecroy, if Lecroy can make the routine play when you need him to play short because you want to pump as much offense in the lineup as possible, you can live with it. Now, is there going to be a ball that gets through the hole between short and third because Lecroy doesn't have the range and maybe a Tippett does? Yeah, it'll happen. But Lecroy can make up for that at the plate. But the way Will Tippett was hitting before he was hurt, maybe Tippett will come back and keep it going and give you offense and defense. But it's good to know that if you need to, if Tippett goes into another funk, you got Lecroy who could slide over to shortstop. Again, you're giving away a little something on defense to gain something on offense. South Carolina, East Tennessee State Wednesday, 6:15 pregame, 6:30 first pitch. Let's give away a pair of tickets, Ed. What the heck? 803-404-6100. Give us a holler. We'll go caller number 7. Gets a pair of tickets. 803-404-6100. Caller number 7. We'll get 2 passes. Go check out South Carolina and East Tennessee State at Founders. Again, 6:15 pre, 6:30 first pitch right here in Columbia at 107.5 and in Myrtle Beach as well as at 100.3. What's trending at 2? Let's open this sucker up a little bit and see what's going on around the rest of the world of sports. When we talk about college basketball, the rich get richer. We'll talk about that coming back. And the Cowboys with a reunion that just popped. So we got that, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelers and Gamecock Traditions right here on the halftime show, sponsored by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina, here on the Game. All right, what's trending at 2? Sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Oops. No, keep it going, Ed. Turn it up. My bad. My bad. I just crushed it in 3 markets. Sorry. Myrtle Beach and Florence, too. My bad. This is what happens when you're outside here yipping with someone and you come walking in and you think you know where everything's at and you don't. That's what happens. Man, the guy in charge is going to give me a ton of grief over that. All right, what's trending at 2? Sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. Ezekiel Elliott has reached a 1-year deal with the Dallas Cowboys. Maximum value, $3 million. My thought, ready? I mean, look, Ezekiel Elliott had a few years where he was really productive for the Cowboys behind one of the best offensive lines in football. Zeke ate a lot. Could catch it out of the backfield. But those days are long over. He's really just a complimentary piece these days. And so, okay. You have Royce Freeman in free agency. I mean, Rico Dowdell, obviously former Gamecock. Deuce Vaughn from Kansas State, who was picked in the 6th round last year. They just got a bunch of pieces to the roster, but you know, the running back room is not what you call wowing you in Dallas. But Ezekiel Elliott back for one last go-around on a 1-year, cheapy $3 million deal. The rich get richer. UConn won back-to-back national championships. They pick up a really nice get in the transfer portal. Aiden Mahaney. Now, if you're someone with no life like me who watches West Coast Conference hoops at like midnight during the week, you know who Aiden Mahaney is. He played for St. Mary's. Nice, solid player. Smart, high basketball IQ. A guy that can knock down threes or has in the past. This past season, my memory serves me, yeah, his three-point shooting percentage came down from 40% to 35.5%. But it's just a solid player. Averaged about 14 a game, 2 straight years, and is now going to roll off to UConn. Figures. He's a good player. He really is a good player. And that's, again, a high basketball IQ guy that'll fit in really well with Danny Hurley and that crew at Stores. So a good get, again, by UConn. Another story. July 20th, the bout between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson will be classified as a sanctioned professional fight by the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations. It should be licensed as the freak show sideshow that it will be. 8 2-minute rounds, each fighter using 14-ounce gloves. The outcome will affect their professional boxing records. Now, I really could care less about Jake Paul. I don't care. Jake Paul, Jake from State Farm, I really could care less either way. I don't watch Jake Paul fight. It does not hit my radar at all. But I won't lie to you. I have so many people around me who hate Jake Paul and tell me how much they can't stand Jake Paul. They're just a YouTuber who's gotten a bunch of people following him because he's a YouTuber. So there's a lot of people who hope Mike Tyson knocks this dude into the cemetery. I don't think that. I don't know. There's also people that tell me these fights with Jake Paul, a lot of people think are all just staged and set up to where Paul doesn't get beat and the other guy's going to make a ton of money if he doesn't embarrass Paul or make him look bad. I don't know what's true and what's not because I don't care. But now, this is one of these things. I would not pay for this ever. I refuse to pay for this fight. But if someone said, hey, Tara, got the fight on at my house. You want to come over and watch it? We got some beers. I might go watch if I'm not paying for it. I might even take beer over to give to them to show, hey, I appreciate you inviting me. But I would never pay for this. But people are going to pay for it. Because, again, it's like anything. When you drive down the road and then you see a 50-car pileup on the other side of the interstate, what do? You rubberneck. This is a rubberneck fight. This thing could be such a sideshow freak show that you can't stop looking at it. You just can't. But it has been officially made a sanctioned pro fight. Yeah. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. We were talking about the New England Patriots a little while ago. They took Marcellus Dial in the draft. Gerard Mayo, Patriot head coach, was commenting on the headlines that popped here recently about Tom Brady. Said he wasn't opposed to making a late season NFL return. He mentioned the Patriots as an option. Head coach Gerard Mayo said on Monday he couldn't envision a Brady return. He could only envision a Brady return in a different job description. Quote from Mayo, I love Tom. The door is always open if he wants to come here and coach. But as far as going on the field, I just don't know. Again, Brady's, almost 50? I mean, again, we get it. He's Tom Brady, but, And he said a late season return, that would mean you're in playoff contention, or you have an injury, you need a quarterback, or your quarterbacks are having issues, you need a guy to come in and stabilize the position for whatever reason at the end of the year. I mean, only a couple teams would be interested in that, right? Or a team that wants to put butts in the seats. That would be it, right? I mean, Tom Brady made headlines on a slow news day and people went nuts. We didn't really even talk about it here because it's a story, but we have more pressing, important things to get to at the time. Do I think Tom Brady's ever going to quarterback another series in the NFL? No. Not at all. Not going to happen. I wouldn't bring him in. God love him. Not now. Not at this point. Even though probably at 50, probably better than half the league. But he could throw it better than half the league. Could he drop back? Could he maneuver around the pocket? Could he, have that little escapability thing he'd have when he would just make a guy miss in the pocket and make a throw? Sidestep a guy? I don't know. He could probably throw it. If he didn't have a pass rush, he'd probably tear it up. But Tom Brady at 50 or right around 50, that's a no. That would be a no. But Brady made headlines. All right, that's what's trending at 2, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. We've given away our tickets, right, Ed Bird? We're done. We gave away 2 pair. We'll have tickets for Asia Wilson's game in the Aces. So be listening for that this week. We got those coming up at some point this week. Also, we got Gamecock baseball on Wednesday, 6:15. Pregame 6:30, first pitch. East Tennessee State and South Carolina, of course, this coming up weekend. The Gamecocks will travel off to Missouri to take on the Tigers. And all 3 of those games, you can hear them right here on the game in Columbia and also the game in Myrtle Beach. And you can get a craft beer card, $30. You can spend at 12 craft beer locations, $360 value, yours for only $79. Just go to 1075thegame.com and click on Sweet Deals. Today is April 29th, the greatest day in the history of the world, sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We've got that next on the halftime show here on the game. Oh, time to see what's happening in the greatest day in the history of the world, which is April 29th. On this day in 2014, the NBA got rid of a stench. Finally, a stench that had been in their league for a long time that they put up with, that they should have never put up with. 2014 LA Clippers owner Donald Sterling is banned for life by the NBA in response to racist comments he made in an audio recording. Clippers owner was also fined $2.5 million, the maximum amount allowed under the NBA Constitution. Sad part is Sterling was just not a good human being, period. Slumlord. If you've read some of the lawsuits against him and some of the places he rented folks, he's just not a good guy in so many different ways. And he was a terrible NBA owner. Terrible. The Clippers much better stay as a franchise with Steve Ballmer, obviously, than Donald Sterling. On this day in 2006, NFL draft, NC State defensive end Mario Williams was the first pick overall by the Houston Texans. Williams had a good NFL career, not like wow Hall of Fame guy, but he was a good player. On this day in 2000, Lennox Lewis knocks down Michael Grant 3 times in the first round, then knocked him out 253 of the second round in Madison Square Garden to retain his WBC and IBF heavyweight titles. It was combined weight almost 500 pounds. That was the heaviest heavyweight fight ever. Again, Lennox Lewis was a guy. He had some good moments. Also, it was a very weird kind of reign for Lennox Lewis as heavyweight champion. 1998, for the first time in the 124-year history of the Kentucky Derby, a redraw is ordered during the post-position draw. Churchill Downs officials allowed ESPN to control the announcing of the draw. Commentator Chris Lincoln called the number 15 poll twice while picking the draft order. See, you get ESPN involved and everything gets screwed up. This day in 1988, my Baltimore Orioles, yes, I'm a part owner, ended their 21-game losing streak by winning their first game of the season, 9-0 over the White Sox. Place was packed. O's were 0-21, had a sellout at Memorial Stadium when they came home. That team was terrible. Embarrassingly terrible. 1986, you might have heard of this guy. First overall pick in the NFL draft, some dude named Bo Jackson. Picked first overall by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was ridiculous. Just best athlete I've ever seen in my lifetime. A phenomenal running back. Hall of Fame caliber running back. But as a baseball player, I mean, he was raw, man, but he hit for power. He hit for a good enough average. I mean, he could run around the outfield. He was athletic. Bo was something else, man. Bo was something. It's a shame he got that hip injury in the playoff game against Cincinnati. It just really is. Because he was a shadow of himself athletically after that. Just a shame. All right, if you're old enough to remember this crazy time in the world of Major League Baseball, 1985, the Yankees fire manager Yogi Berra 16 games into the season, despite assurances from Yankee owner George Steinbrenner that he'd be kept for the whole year. So Steinbrenner basically tells Yogi Berra, no, we're going to keep you. Oh, now we're going to fire you. After 16 games, you know who he brings in? Billy Martin, who he then fired 5 more times that year, and then kept bringing him back. Ridiculous. Couple more real quick. 1981, Philadelphia Phillies Steve Carlton, first lefty to strike out 3,000 batters in a career, or 3,000 batters in a career. I mean, Carlton was a phenomenal pitcher. And here's what he said to the media. Did not talk. Some guy named Tim McCarver was his mouthpiece. He was his personal catcher and his mouthpiece. McCarver made a career out of being Steve Carlton's personal catcher. I think it started in St. Louis, then also in Philadelphia. And McCarver was really good for a long period of time as an analyst. He would tell you stuff you didn't know. That's what I always looked at with an analyst. Are you telling me something I don't know? Are you teaching me things about the game that you're analyzing that I go like this, wow, that was cool. I didn't know that. And Tim McCarver, especially early on in his broadcast career, did that a lot. But yeah, Steve Carlton on this day becoming the first lefty to strike out 3,000 hitters. And in 1961, ABC's Wide World of Sports debuted. Again, if you're under 40, you'd be like, what is this? Wide World of Sports you speak of, maybe under 35. But ABC's Wide World of Sports, and if you could find the theme to it, man, Wide World of Sports theme, and fire that sucker up before we get out of this segment. It was like the coolest stuff. You'd have Olympic swimming, and then after that, you would have like pig racing. Then there would be some other serious sport that, wow, and then they'd be playing jacks. The ABC's Wide World of Sports was interesting. It was tons of different stuff. And if you're sitting around on a Saturday, and back then you had 3 TV channels, maybe 4, and Wide World of Sports was on, you'd be mesmerized by some of that stuff. Let me know when you got it there, Ed Bird. We'll fire this baby up. Just take a little trip down memory lane from the old days. But ABC's Jim McKay was the host of ABC's Wide World of Sports. The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. Let me know when you got it. Here we go. Hit it, Ed.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat. The human drama of athletic competition. This is ABC's Wide World of Sports.
Brought to you by the makers of...
There you go. The agony of defeat guy is a skier who's flying through the air. He was a guy, he was like a pop culture guy, a pop culture icon for a while. I can't pronounce his name. He was a dude from Europe, I believe, and he was skiing, kind of lost on the skis and went flying. He was the agony of defeat guy on ABC's Wide World of Sports. There we go. Jean-Claude Keeley is what Ed Bird tells me in my ear. I can't remember his name. Thank you, Ed Bird. All right, and on this day in 1986, a dude named Billy Sims was the first pick overall in the NFL draft. An interesting part about Billy Sims, he was a little old when he got to the NFL. He was like mid-20s. And he had a great career at Oklahoma, won a Heisman Trophy. And Billy Sims got to the NFL and had 3,000-yard seasons for the Detroit Lions, only played 5 years, had a knee injury, just was never the same. But Billy Sims, his first 2 seasons, averaged about 1,350 yards a year. And no one talks about Billy Sims anymore in Detroit because of Barry Sanders. But Billy Sims, if he wouldn't have got hurt, would have really put up some special numbers because Billy Sims was a high-level running back. Like I said, first year, over 1,300 yards. Second year, over 1,400 yards. Then the injury came back, ran for over 1,000 yards, but the injuries just, ended his career. It was a shame. He averaged 4.5 yards a carry for his career. Had to sell his Heisman Trophy in 1995. He had financial troubles. Yeah, it was just, it kind of had some rough go after he left the NFL. The trophy was sold to a Texas businessman, Bob White, who had been a father figure to Sims. But in the agreement, Sims could repurchase the Heisman Trophy by paying the original price plus 8.5% interest. And that guy's a father figure. I love you. You're like a son to me. I'm going to charge 8.5% interest. So there's greatest day in the history of the world, sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We will get back in here on the halftime show. Firehouse sub, text the hour at 803-404-6100. And we'll yip about anything else we haven't gotten to yet. Maybe we'll talk to some guy named Jay Phillips if he shows up one time. We got all that coming up. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford, Ed Bird, we're hanging around here till 3 on the game. All right, time for our Firehouse Sub Text the Hour on in the halftime show, sponsored by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Terry Ford, Ed Bird, as we hang out for a little bit longer than the post-game show with Jay and Elijah, and obviously they will get into what we've talked about through the show, what everyone has talked about today. Spencer Rattler going in the 5th round to the New Orleans Saints. Also, South Carolina baseball taking 2 out of 3 over top 5 team Kentucky over the weekend of Founders, and Nick Pringle coming in through the transfer portal to play for the South Carolina men and Lamont Paris. All right, here we go. Firehouse Subtext the Hour. We talked also earlier on the show about Xavier Legette ending up in Carolina. Texter Thomas, I noticed the Panthers are doing a lot to get the South Carolina fan base back. First, they signed Jadeveon Clowney, now draft XL with a first-round pick. What's your opinion on that subject? I get where you're going. I don't think what they're doing is trying to just win the fan base back in South Carolina. I think that's like, that's residual. What you're trying to do, number one, is make your pass rush better because you did lose Brian Burns. Is Jadeveon Clowney showed a lot of juice last year as a pass rusher in Baltimore, so you get Clowney on a pretty team-friendly deal. And Xavier Legette, you trade up to get him because, he was the top receiver on your board. And two, you want, and I heard this, I heard this and I read it yesterday, and then I heard Wes talk about it today as well. One of the reasons that Carolina went up to get Legette was to get the extra year of the rookie deal. Because if you're a second-round pick, you've got a 4-year deal. A first-round pick, you'll have a 5-year deal because of that 5th-year option. So that's the reason. I thought Carolina did that for other draft reasons, like draft maneuvering the board type of thing. But no, it's as simple as they wanted that extra year of Xavier Legette. I don't think the number one reason, Thomas, they're doing it is to get the South Carolina fan base back. Best way to do that is start winning some games, right? Quit stinking. Quit having an embarrassment as an owner who shows up at restaurants to, ask about some sign they put up about the team. Just how about owners stop meddling? The people you hire to run the football operation and coach the football team, let them do it. And that's a start. That would be a good way to start getting the fan base back from South Carolina. But I get what you're saying, Thomas. Interesting thought. Interesting thought. All right, another note from the NFL. Kansas City Chiefs and Travis Kelce have agreed on a 2-year contract extension. No news exactly on what the deal is on that extension. And what kind of, it's probably something that will alleviate some cap for Kansas City is my guess, plus giving Kelce some more guaranteed money. Speaking of the NFL, Monday Night Countdown, Jason Kelce will join the Monday Night Football pregame show on ESPN. I will watch that now because I just want to see Jason Kelce. Is he going to be shirtless, shotgun and beers? That's what I want to see. I want to see Kelce shirtless, shotgun and beers on Monday Night Countdown. Then I'll be interested. Remember that they showed I thought it was great. The Chiefs in the playoffs, they keep showing, obviously, Taylor Swift every chance they get. And the one time they showed Taylor Swift, there's Jason Kelce, no shirt on, chugging a beer. That was funny. Hi, how you doing? I'm Travis's brother. Oh, wow. Did I do that on your hair? I'm so sorry. And by the way, Ed Bird got to me during the break. The correct name of the agony of defeat guy, here we go, Vinko Bogataj from Yugoslavia. He was in a ski flying event March 7th, 1970, and he flew. Our boy flew. He flew a long way. And he became the agony of defeat guy with ABC's Wide World of Sports. Vinko Bogota. I guess the J's silent. I don't know. I'm not really good with Yugoslavian names. So that was the guy who was the agony of defeat guy from ABC Wide World of Sports. Of course, we were talking about that because this day in 1961, the Wide World of Sports debuted. I want to get to one thing from Carolina baseball that we didn't touch on. I want to circle back to Ed Bird. I need you to call for it. Cut number 8 here in just a second. All right. Ethan Petrie on Sunday hit a home run. But it wasn't a home run because Petrie passed Austin Brindling, who was in front of him on the base pass. So that becomes a single. In the scorebook, the home run turns into a single because you passed the runner in front of you. Now, that's on Petrie. It's up to you as the back runner to pay attention to what's going on in front of you. Petrie, maybe he's watching the home run, whatever the case. Maybe didn't realize that Brindling was coming back to first, and then he had to reverse and go to second. Whatever the case, whatever happened, Petrie passed Brindling, and a home run ends up being a single. Here's Cut 8. Mark Kingston talking about that base running error on Sunday.
Well, that's exactly what they asked me on the SEC network. It's, when you know that you're going to be on the SEC network, coaches interview the following inning, you hope nothing crazy happens that you're going to have to address when they ask you. As soon as that happened, I knew that would be the question when in the in-game interview. Basically, what you had there was a very excited Ethan Petrie, who saw the ball leave the park and forgot to look at the guy in front of him. He's hit probably 150 homers in his life, and that's probably never happened to him before, and it will never happen again because he's learned the lesson. But I think he in the back of his mind, I think he expected that the runner would be well off to second base, and that he wouldn't have to worry about it. And I've got to look at the video to see exactly where do I think the runner should have been. But at the end of the day, it's always the backside runner's responsibility not to pass the guy in front of him under any circumstances.
God love Ethan Petrie. Hits a home run. He's watching it. It's majestic. And you don't realize that the runner in front of you just passed him. It happens. It's rare. We're speaking of Tim McCarver. I think it was Tim McCarver. Years ago, hit a grand slam, but passed the runner in front of him and it became a single. So it does happen occasionally. It doesn't happen much, but it does happen. Like Coach Kingston said, it'll never happen to Ethan Petrie ever again. Happens to you once, never happen again. Ever. Had the hidden ball trick happen to me. I was a young'un. I was playing, in majors in Little League. It was championship series. It was best 2 out of 3. We had won game 1. We're crushing this team in game 2. I hit a double. Yeah, pitcher was pitching underhand, obviously, because I actually hit it. And I'm standing on second base, and I'm off the bag because I'm talking to my buddy who was the shortstop, and we're yipping, and they got me with the hidden ball trick. Man, my coach was mad. I never let that happen to me ever again. But yeah, so once goofy things happen to you once, they never happen again. By the way, South Carolina moved up to number 11 in the RPI by winning 2 out of 3 over Kentucky over the weekend. We're done. Finished history down the road. Jay and Elijah next with the postgame show. Ed Bird, my friend, fine work. Made me sound smarter than I really am. I appreciate you. We'll do this again tomorrow, the halftime show, right here on The Game in Columbia, Florence, and Myrtle Beach. We'll see you.